Circe Denyer. With her speech, her name is Circe. Thank you.
Somewhere between June of 1950 and December of 1950, two people had a decision to make. James Freeman Denyer and Mary Lou Denyer had to decide what their second child was going to be named, because that child was due in January. Now that sounds simple. Two adult people talking about a name. There are thousands of names, right? Well, the first child's name was easy. We named the boy after the father, James Freeman Denyer, Jr. That was simple. I don't know what would have happened if it had been a girl. Neither do they. And I asked my mother recently, what would have happened if I had been a boy? And her answer was, we didn't have a boy name. But they did have another name besides Circe, the one they decided on. And that's for another story later. But let me tell you why I was named Circe and not this other name. My father was an avid reader. He read the newspaper. He read the Encyclopedia Britannica. Our den was covered with books. From the age of 7, he grew up in a household where they sold books. They had a bookstore in El Paso, Texas. So he read everything, including Greek mythology. And he really loved the idea that he could come up with a name that nobody had ever heard of before, that nobody had ever used before, that nobody would be called in that schoolroom, in that social situation. It would be so unique that it would be very difficult for that person to be duplicated somewhere else. So there wasn't going to be any Linda or Joan or, like my sister, Jennifer. This name for the second child was going to be different. It was going to be really, really unique. My father, in reading Greek mythology, came up with a name that my mother said, absolutely not, because there was a rule. The name could not be shortened into a nickname. The name could not be teased in some sort of negative rhyme when that child went to school. And the name needed to be understood, or at least be able to be pronounced by the child from an early age. Now, I don't remember the day I asked why I was named Circe, because to me the story was always told to me without my prompting. Here's who you were named after. A Greek author by the name of Homer wrote a story called the Iliad and the Odyssey, actually two stories. And in the Odyssey, Odysseus, who was a sailor, sailed his ships around the islands off the coast of Greece. And as he was sailing, he heard beautiful singing, gorgeous singing. So beautiful, he was lured to the islands where he crashed his ship, and all of his men, the people he was in charge of, were turned immediately into swine. Because Circe, the sorceress who owned that area, had magical powers. And she had the power to transform a human being into an animal. And she turned them all into swine. Now there's a lot of jokes I make about that when somebody asks me, where'd you get your name? I don't sing. I don't have any magical powers. And I don't turn men into pigs. They do that themselves.
Oh.
That really, really works because guys laugh, women love it, and it's fun. But what's interesting about it, the artwork and the drawings and things, they're all very erotic because Circe was an enchantress. She wasn't just a sorceress who had magical powers. She was really an enchantress. And Odysseus had to get the help of Hermes, a god, to have his men changed back. And then later, in another story, he was said to have married her and had 2 children. So me, I'm Circe, and no, I've never met another Circe ever. So my dad got his wish. And do I love my name? Absolutely. I wouldn't be named Jennifer for anything. Madam Toastmaster.